is the last Friday in June. Maize and Blue Review. Ready to talk?
Wow, Denny, that says a lot. Last Friday in June. We're getting right down to the nitty gritty. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. Wow. We're at the end of June.
There he is, Jerry Diorio, jumping right as the ball was snapped. He's ready to go. Not a surprise. Former Michigan offensive lineman. And, you know, Jerry, I don't know. I was just online, and I saw this family that was going to see, they said they had a great time at the Luke Bryan concert, and the last name was Diorio. And I didn't see, they had a bunch of pictures in. I'm like, I didn't see if, I thought, well, maybe Jerry's taking the picture. How was Luke Bryan? Did you go see the country star? You know what I'm talking about?
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
My wife and daughter went without me.
Oh,
can you believe that? I was working last night. And they went without me. So I'm a little bitter right now, but I'll get over it. You know that. But anyways, I saw Luke Bryan with my wife in Vegas before the national championship game when he was his final show on his casino contract. Because he was the headliner at one of the casinos. And it was his last show. And what a performer. What a performer. What a entertainer. I mean, interacting with the crowd, with the audience, having fun, getting a little bit intoxicated, but just having a good time and enjoying himself. I mean, Denny, I think he played Blondie when I watched him.
What sang a song about Blondie?
Yes.
Heart of Glass?
Yeah, either a Blondie or a Madonna or something. And you know his glass was filled when he was doing it. So, but no, he's a great performer, great entertainer, a lot of fun, interactive, great performer.
Well, it was funny. He said the night before, just so last night, my wife we were talking about July and August before football starts. And she said, well, give me a list if there's anybody that comes around that you might want to see. And when I went to the country genre, Luke Bryan was there. I put Al Dean's name in front of his, but those were the two that I had on there. So that was interesting that I saw, you know, your family going to see him. You know, what I thought was interesting, I put, if Roger Waters comes back with Pink Floyd or if Led Zeppelin gets together, and my wife looked it up and she said, Roger Waters is 80 years old, and the Robert Plant, she didn't know that Robert Plant was the lead singer, but she said, is this the guy? And I said, oh yeah, that's him. She said, he's 75. And I said, yeah, they're probably not. I said, they haven't toured in, I don't know, 30 years or something like that, Waters with Floyd. So, I had to come up with at least some bands that, the guys were under 50 or something like that. But that's, if you're a rock and roll fan, that can happen. But, Luke Bryan, he's probably not even 30 years old.
Yeah,
so.
Well, I think he's in his 30s, Denny. He's in his 30s. I've also seen Blake Shelton. My wife has become this country music enthusiast or follower, or whatever you want to call it. And she's dragged me all around to all kinds of different concerts. Like I said, Luke Bryan, Dean, I went and seen, I believe it was McGraw. I saw him.
Tug McGraw, that's right.
Saw him. Yeah, that was a great show. Great. I'll tell you what, the country music industry, they've come up with some great shows, great entertainers. A lot of fun out there. A lot of fun.
Jerry, I think we've got breaking news, and I see some people talking about it here. Well, I'm seeing somebody talking about the ACC, and I was going to see if that's official or not. I don't know. I'll work on that. Sometimes the stuff goes up there, and we'll find out. And let's just tell everybody, I mean, if something happens while we're here, we can roll with the punches, and we can go to it. And we'll get right to the big house and things being said about Michigan Stadium. There's some rule changes that we want to address. We're going to get to recruiting out of the gate. And as always, if the people have something to say, here's Juju talking about the ACC joining the Big Ten. That would be quite a collab. If that one ended up going through, I don't know. He's just talking, or if that's official or not. But he's also talking about Juju is a commitment, possibly if Philip Wright, who is a wide receiver, and that one very much could happen. I think that is in the realm of possibilities. And we start right there with recruiting, but Ferris says he's talking about your wardrobe first.
I think this is a maize. I don't think this is a yellow. I think this is more maize than yellow. I don't know. Maybe I'm colorblind, but it is the Rose Bowl reunion shirt. So I'm going to go with the official Rose Bowl reunion shirt of 1980-81 team that won Bo's first. And I'm going to go with I'm going to disagree with Ferris on this one. With all due respect, Ferris, I'm disagreeing with you.
Well, I'm going to see if I can get a close up on it. I think I can. There it is. Let's just have a look. Yeah, Jerry, the different color, I don't know, the numbers or whatever else, corn, maize, or yellow. That looks, it pops to me. I think it looks pretty good. I like it, so.
That's what I like about this show, Denny. The interaction with the audience. That's a lot of fun. That's a tremendous lot of fun.
Richard talking about the ACC. He's saying that in FSU territory down there that the Big Ten would take Florida State after their court case. He says he doesn't believe they qualify scholastically. What do you think? I don't know if they qualify scholastically or not, but if there was going to be teams in the ACC and you could pick them, I would start with Florida State and Clemson. I would start thinking about North Carolina after that. So those are three off the top. Is the U? I don't know what the U. They're in the ACC. Some things. There's four. I think those are the four most attractive. But yeah, I mean, academics does come into play, doesn't it, Jerry? I know we don't talk about academics anymore. And I was reading the rules. We're going to get to some of those rule changes, and they're actually saying like, well, this is for the student athlete. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that in a while. I'm talking about, the student athlete. But yeah, they'll factor in academics.
I never really knew that schools couldn't meet academic standards across conferences. I never knew that. I thought, you have academic standards. Florida State, you're getting a Florida State degree. You got to believe it's going to cross standards with the Big Ten. I mean, you have to believe that. I never really even thought about that as being a obstacle for some of these teams. Obviously, it is. Florida State coming into the Big Ten. We're starting to see this move, Denny, towards a north and south.
Yeah.
And two big ones, okay? And the movement away from a governing body that is going to try and juggle a tremendous amount of balls, and we're moving to a more manageable, it looks like almost a 60 to 70 team alignment. Between a top bracket, a north and a south, or whatever you want to call it. But it's starting to appear like we're getting down to a select group of colleges that are going to be competing for a national title.
Yeah, the way AI goes, it works so quick. They just keep talking about, hey, put this model out there. Next thing you know, you got 100 different models to take a look at and consider what happens if they do this. So, who knows? We could be talking about a north-south, AFC, NFC type thing. Like in the NFL, they could take the group of 5 teams and put them over in the corner, and they could just battle it out here. However, they're able to cut up the money and everything else. So we'll see. I as it is right now, it's weird. It's weird having talk about Washington and Oregon and USC and UCLA, being in the Big Ten. But here we are. But it's. When I was growing up, you had, the Big 8. Wasn't
you had the Southwest Conference, Denny? When I was growing up, with Texas A&M, Texas, Arkansas. Okay, that was the old Southwest Conference. Remember Baylor, Rice, SMU, the Pony Express. That was all the Southwest Conference. So tremendous evolution in college football over the last several decades, but none have been more great than in the last 5 or 8 years that we've seen in college football. It's just a tremendous shift, a tremendous realignment. And I think it's work. I think it's going to be for the better. I really do.
I do too. Pony Express started out NIL before we'd ever heard of such a thing.
Hey, they were phenomenal advertisers.
They were great.
Tremendous salespeople.
Richard talking about we just can't play Ohio 3 times a year. That grinds me. Richard, I understand that, but it won't happen all the time. And if Michigan is playing Ohio State 3 times, well, guess what? We are not only seeing the game, but then we're seeing the Big Ten championship game, and then we're also seeing those 2 in the playoffs, and they would probably, if you're thinking about one of those teams will get a bye, then, and if you're playing them again, I don't know, is that going to be in the championship game? It's either going to be
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking, Denny. I mean, if you're playing Ohio State 3 times, that means one of them's for a big one, either a semifinal or a final. So yeah, I agree with you totally on that.
Let's give it up to Blue Wolverine. He's saying the weekend is upon us. Cheers to the weekend and go Blue. All right, we're with you there, Blue Wolverine. It's nice to see you on here. I don't know if you're relatively new. It's a nice everything that you have going on there is pretty nice. So we like that. Well, someone earlier talked about the possibility that Michigan could have the wide receiver, Philip Wright. He could be a commitment, and he is a speed burner, and he is out of Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken. That would be yet another commitment. If I'm just going on what Juju's saying right here, but Michigan just got they're up to 12 commitments, but they just got a wide receiver out of Louisiana. And if they got Wright, that would be another one. That would be quite a pair coming up from the bayou of wide receivers. What a time to be alive. Jerry, we start thinking about all these different guys that can be coming in and how Michigan might be able to get them. But hey, that's what Juju's hearing. And, maybe Juju knows what he's talking about.
Well, here's what I'm seeing with Michigan. Every time we see that we need something, we're addressing it either in the transfer portal, recruiting, or both. And we're talking about Washington here, and we're talking about some of the other receivers. Don't forget, we just got a kid from Youngstown State, who, from all accounts, is pretty good little playmaker that we just picked up. So we're addressing the need areas, and that's good. That's what you have to be. You have to be aware of where our weaknesses or apparent weaknesses are. Address them and fill them with good people. And it looks like we're making inroads with the 4 stars.
Yeah, I don't know who to throw all the credit out to, but Bellamy did grow up in Louisiana, so and that is his area. So
I just saw that, Juju. I would agree that he's probably got something to do with it. I'm sorry, Denny. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. Lamar Morgan also he's from that neck of the woods. I mean, he grew up. He went to high school in Texas, but he went to college and then coached University of Louisiana. So maybe that's Lamar. Maybe both of them combining, and saying, let's go the Bayou North, Michigan. Who knows how that goes? But the wide receiver, if it's not the wide receiver, Philip Wright, there is some news today about a defensive end that might not have been on your radar, and his name is Julius Holly. Jolly Holly in June, and this guy right here, Julius Holly, is making a decision tomorrow. He is making his decision tomorrow. He is coming off visits to Georgia. It was considered Michigan and Texas A&M, but then Georgia got in there and offered him Ole Miss, and there are now a future casts on Holly to Michigan. And I don't know, Jerry, you have to be up to speed on Twitter and on Sharon Moore's emoji game. But Sharon Moore, when Michigan has a commitment, takes to Twitter, and what does he do? He puts like the lookout eyes, and then he puts the Michigan icon, and then he puts a blue dot while he has put one of those out today. So Michigan's got somebody, and so we're guessing a little bit, maybe Philip Wright, and it may be this young man who's committing tomorrow. It might not. If I'm Sharon Moore, and I don't know if that's spoiling a kid's, a surprise or whatever else, or maybe the kid said, "Go ahead and do whatever you want." There's something else afoot, before Holly and Moore's not, jumping the gun the day before. That would be what I would think, but I also feel like Michigan's in a great spot, and they're the leader heading into the weekend for this Holly. And Jerry, if we just look at the possibility, if Michigan is able to land Julius Holly, what stands out to you? I mean, he is a 4-star. He's an edge rusher. He's out of Georgia. What are the things that are jumping out to you about Julius?
All the above and the offers he's getting. He's not getting a Michigan offer and I don't want to be too insulting, but a Michigan and a Vanderbilt offer, or in Michigan and Vanderbilt and Indiana. This young man is receiving offers from Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. These are people that have their nose to the grindstone on this new recruiting, this new NIL, and all the new changes that are coming on, and we're right there. And if this would be a great feather in Sharon's hat, in Esposito's hat, in Wink Martindale's hat, if we could get these two, if we can get Marshall and Holly, wow, that's pretty exciting in my book. I mean, that answers a tremendous amount of questions. We had the young man that we talked about a lot in spring ball from Pennsylvania. I think he was from Pennsylvania. What was his name? Number 33. So, we're looking at, we've got some solid, experienced players on the edge. And now potentially we're backing them up with solid 4- and 5-star edge players. This is exciting if we can get these two.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And the bat signal is what Blue Wolverine has up there. He has smash, and that is what Sharon Moore uses. He puts that smash up there, and that's the one that people get excited about, because it looks like then there's something that's a forthcoming, like a commitment. So
yep. And I'm with you, blank name. This young man, when you look at the demographics, 6'4", 220, nothing really stands out to you there. But what does stand out to me is, if we're recruiting this guy at 6'4", 220 to play edge, and so is Georgia, this kid's got some speed off the edge. This would be a great pickup.
Yeah, and in years past, like last year, if Michigan was in on a guy from the South, and I saw Texas A&M, and I saw Georgia, I would be like, Michigan doesn't have a chance. I mean, these teams are going to be paying them off. Dominic Nichols, by the way, for some reason I couldn't come up with that name.
Yeah, there you go, Dominic Nichols. There you go. Yep.
33 on there. So, yeah, he's pretty good. You're right. Michigan's got a run there, but that's the part that I think of it. It felt like I was on here Monday, like yelling and screaming. It felt like Michigan had pushed through something with all of the different things that they had lined up with NIL, from the companies they're working with to the GMs and the point people all the way through there. And since this started, they just continue to have all of this network. And I didn't know which one of this collective or this one together, how they were going to work and all of that. But it felt like just over this past weekend that something happened where it came together. Now there was a flurry of activity with recruiting. And then, here's a kid that in years past, most people are like, Michigan's not going to be able to get this guy. There's no way. Yeah. He's in the South. And now it seems like I don't know what Michigan's saying. I don't know what they're doing, but it's whatever it is, it's working. So, props to Michigan that way.
And that's what happens when you win, Denny. When you win, people want to go there. There's a chance that in my 4 years at this school, I could get a ring for a national title. That's a reason to go to a school. And so we've proven we can win a national title under tremendous circumstances, and people are taking note of that. So, that's a tremendous hat to our coaches, past and present. And boy, this would be a great pickup.
Here's Ferris. I did accept an invitation to go on his show, so I'm looking forward to that. And here's Justin. How about Justin coming in with I've never got a gold stamp, a $10 gold stamp. I like it, but Justin's talking about the new rule change that allows the analysts to coach the kids now during practice and games. All of our analysts, former NFL players, that is big, with guys like McPhee coaching the defensive ends. He was with Wink in New York. I don't know if he was with him in Baltimore. I think he was, actually. So that part, we were going to talk about that coming up with as the rule changes, but Justin coming in with a gold sawbuck. Let's go ahead.
Let's address it right now. Hey, Denny, one thing before I start getting off on the rule changes, I want to just shout out to a good old friend of mine, Dave Hall, and his lovely daughter, Anna Hall, who is competing for the Olympics, I believe, in the decathlon. Saw her run a phenomenal 400. An old chip off the old block, as they say. I mean, David was a tremendous athlete. He was a tremendous decathloner in college, and I believe he tried out for the Olympics back when he was at that time. And now his daughter's doing it, and again, another Michigan connection. It's great to have that Michigan connection, and wish her all the best. Wish that family all the best, and good luck, and bring home a gold.
Yeah, good stuff there. We'll be looking for something to look forward to over in Paris with a Michigan connection. We'll keep you up to speed as close as we can when we find out if it's going to be on TV, if we're going to be able to watch this or not. Some of the new rule changes, this is what Justin is talking about. Any staff member can provide technical and tactical instruction to players during practice and competition. Before, Jerry, if you were an analyst, you couldn't do that. You couldn't coach on the field, but now you can as an analyst. And this is an advantage for Michigan, and that, as Justin says, they're not only, they've got their coaching staff of the guys that can recruit, but behind the scenes, and I say behind the scenes, but now they're not so much behind the scenes, the analyst. We saw it last year with Mallory was on the team. You went down the list, some of those guys that even Harbaugh took. Who was the one guy? Dylan Roney, who was working with the edge guys. If you're a real big-time Michigan fan, you know who that is. But a lot of the edge players said, yeah, Roney was a tremendous coach. Now, Roney, if he was still here, he could be on the field. Now, the one thing to point out is that initial thing that Harbaugh got suspended for the first 3 games for last year, there was some video that they were using that I don't know if it went right up to the line, crossed the line or whatever, but this was also on that list of stuff they weren't supposed to do. They had some of the analysts that actually were on the field. And then, of course, the part where it involved the illegal contact, however that went, that a lot of people chalk up to, buying a hamburger or something. But whatever, this was part of that. But, now that's in the rearview mirror. You can go out there and coach them.
Well, a couple of things, Danny, come to mind. First of all, you got to look at the pros and the cons on that rule. All right. Pros. First of all, there's going to be more jobs, more coaches, more jobs, more opportunities to improve your players. That's a good thing. The con that I can see is that it might affect younger coaches. And the reason I say that is if now you can have an analyst who can have contact and do these support things with these players, I think it behooves you to bring in somebody that's older, more experienced, and has credibility at that kind of position. So there's pros and cons. I like the rule. Again, you mentioned it, you hit on it. This is kind of like the old Harbaugh rule, and it kind of it kind of exonerates Harbaugh. If you're making a rule now that we potentially could have violated, and now you're changing the rule. That means the rule probably wasn't all that great in the first place. So now we have analysts that can get in contact and support the players and work with players. They're going to have more jobs. There's going to be more scouting jobs, preparation on cards, breakdown of film. All these different jobs now are going to be available. The one potential negative might be that it could affect younger coaches.
I like the word exonerates. You came up with that one with Harbaugh. I like that one. The other piece to this is the council voted to remove cannabis. It's the cannabinoids. I guess that's the technical word. I could just say pot. I don't know, from the banned drug class. Now, Jerry, the first thing I think is that, so guys can go and smoke joints as much as they want, burn down, and they're good to go. They don't have to worry about these tests that it stays in your system up to 30 days. A lot of guys getting it. Guys in the pros back, they don't have to go too far back. Guys were getting dinged all the time. But there also is the part that, I'm not involved with and I don't know about, but when guys really have pain management, whatever they're dealing with, that I have heard there's plenty of people that say that this is a good alternative to pharmacology, that, not taking like the, hardcore pills or something, that cannabis can help with some pain management. So this could be, from that angle, it's not just like, hey, big time party, let's go fire up. It also, has a benefit in terms of pain management, I guess. Is what
absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. Let's go with the rule itself. What they're trying to do is they're not trying to exonerate or make pot more accessible. First of all, it's a federal law. We have the state of Michigan that changed this law, and don't read this either way, folks. I'm just saying it's a federal law. So the governing body is saying it's not that big a deal for us to check.
Yeah,
I tend to somewhat agree with that, because what their emphasis is going to be on now are these performance enhancing drugs. And that, I believe, is where the emphasis should be and should have always been and should always be. I don't agree with performance enhancing drugs. I never took them. I never took protein shakes. I never did any of that stuff. I got my nutrition from food. I ate. And I ate it. In fact, I ate so hard, it was almost like an extension of my workout. I hurt when I ate. I had to eat so much. That's how I got big. And here I am. And, back in the 80s, it was well known. There was a lot of steroid use and a lot of performance enhancing use in college football. And I think that's a tremendous advantage for those people that are taking it, and they should be screened and they should be knocked off of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was going to say, it was reminiscent of the draft that Barry Sanders was in. The pick before, the Packers took a guy that was nicknamed the Chemist, Tony Mandrich.
Mandrich, yep.
Yeah, and we knew what he was doing. Yeah, I was going to say, when it comes down to it, that a question for you is, after your playing days, you coached for over 20 years. What were you telling your kids about, I don't know, creatine, all the different things that, the protein powders, everything else, diet just in general in the off season, workout, such a big part in diet of for the football players. I don't know what you got into when it came to pot the last couple of years, drinking. Of course, that's, it's still 21 for all of those things,
Well, here's the deal, Denny. First of all, I was coaching high school, so drinking and smoking pot was a violation against school rules.
Yeah, student handbook.
That stopped all of that. Okay, or at least to try to police all of that. Let's put it that way. Okay, the performance enhancing drugs. I used to look. I try to lead by example. I never took the stuff. I never took the stuff. Never took a protein, or never took a protein shake consistently or on as a diet or anything like that. No creatine, no nothing. So I could speak honestly to my kids and say, listen, you eat everything in sight. I'm going to work you out hard enough that the fat that is not good will get out of you. But you eat everything in sight. You stay fed. You eat everything in sight. We'll work the stuff out of you. And that's always been my philosophy. I would rather have my team with good, solid food instead of shakes and powders and all these other things. I just think good, solid food, you're less likely to get hurt. When, there's studies out there. Steroids destroy tendons, make you more susceptible to injuries. They do help, injuries. Yeah, we know that, but they can make you more susceptible to injuries. So I always like to say to my kids, do things right, eat right. You don't need that other junk. Let the cards fall where they may. It's going to affect you later on.
Yeah, it used to be something, they don't talk about it as much in football, which is a little bit odd because, football, I think that would be the sport that it would be most prevalent in, but it was talked about the most in baseball. And that was with McGuire and Bonds. And then it kept going, HGH, and you couldn't really detect it. And it's the water, it's the oil, and all these things. But, you do see some of the players that take off and are just sitting there and they just are, the most amazing players on the field, and then they're getting these $200-300 million contracts, and then they're getting hurt, and then it really does help your performance for a time. But then when you don't take them, it does it, and the long-term effects. You can look at all the different players that are out there. So
Denny, I just watched the Lance Armstrong documentary, that 30 for 30 on Lance Armstrong, and very interesting documentary. Lance was pretty clean up until he was 21, and what happened? Why? And I'm not defending him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I do want to say that he did a tremendous amount for cancer research and cancer prevention and raising money for cancer. I will say that. But and I'm not. And don't get me wrong. I'm not defending him on the athletic side. But when he got to be 21, he was dominating until he got to be 21. And then he started seeing people that he was beating consistently overtake him. And that's where that's where he started. He, in the documentary, states that he started at around 21, and that's what happened. And the rest is history, as they say. But when you look at it, that whole industry, that whole cycling sport was tremendously affected by steroids and some of the byproducts of what goes on when you get involved with steroids. So yeah, it's I'm happy to see that we're going to start focusing on the performance enhancing drugs instead of the recreational things that may or may not be legal.
There you go. I want to tell everyone that if you want to know what's going on with the latest in recruiting and you want to have conversations about sports with a well-educated and friendly community, that's what you get at MichiganRivals.com with the Maize and Blue Review. That's what's going on all day, all night, and the recruiting right up to speed, right in front of everything, telling you, sure, you can just, throw 100 names out there. People are excited, woo, woo, or you want the main targets of there. I think what you see over there on the Maize and Blue Review, that we got a pretty good deal where it's narrowing in and giving you the legitimate news. We want to see you over there. Join the Maize and Blue Review today by going to Michigan.rivals.com. We'll see you over there. The big dog could post a thread like this and say, hey, everyone relax. Alex Orji, let him take the team wherever it's going to, because he's the best one. And if I had to say, if there's one thing that's the common theme or the biggest, whether it's argument or debate or just conversation, whichever way you want to look at it, it is about Alex Orji. The guy's he's completed one pass that was against UConn 2 years ago. And so, Michigan's loaded. It's just, how is he going to do? Let's see, could be great. They might have to go somewhere else. We don't know. That's the big intrigue heading into the season, Jerry.
Well, I agree. I agree. Alex Orji is our quarterback right now. And if I'm Michigan, I've got a couple playbooks ready. one for Alex Orji, where he's going to run the freaking ball. Period. End of story. We're not going to fool anybody. We're not going to. Our quarterback is going to run the ball. Yeah, we're going to throw it, but he's going to run the ball. We feel confident that he's going to be able to withstand the battles. And then another playbook for if he gets hurt. But Alex Orji is our guy, and we need to put together a system where it's going to utilize his strengths.
I like it. Now, Jerry, something else that we put up on the board that we wanted to talk about is EA Sports. Everyone was all excited. You know, Donovan Edwards made the front cover of the college football 25 EA Sports. It came back. Here's some of the graphics from EA Sports. You see Donovan Edwards getting into the end zone there, striking the Heisman post. The graphics, I haven't actually played the game, but I've seen the pictures of the stadiums, cold weather the fans are wearing. I mean, it's amazing, but you know, it is 2024 and it is, you know, it's amazing the stuff they have, but they've been dabbling EA Sports and all this other stuff, best offenses, best defenses. And then this week they came up with a top 10 toughest places to play. And they have Kyle Field at Texas A&M being number one, but conspicuous by their admission, Jerry, there's no Michigan Stadium on there. Michigan Stadium ranked 16th by EA Sports. What do you think? So it just says they don't have all the criteria, but it's toughest places to play. What do you think with Michigan not being in the top 10 and being ranked 16th in that?
Okay, I've got a few bullet points here, Denny. First of all, I want to talk about some of the places they didn't mention. Okay? Like the University of Washington. Now, I have a friend who played at another school that went to Washington. He didn't play in the game, or he just played in special teams. Okay, I told him when I went to Washington, I got out of that game, I had a headache. It was the only time I ever had a real headache after a game, after a practice, or anything. Okay, except back maybe my sophomore year when Moransky would beat me around as a meatball on the demo squad when I was a sophomore. But anyways, I never really got a headache. After that Washington game, my head was spinning. It was pounding. That place has got to be one of the toughest places to play in the country. The winds are swirling. The people are nuts. That's where the wave came from. He got a headache. The man I'm talking about, he got a headache, and he didn't even play in the game. So this is that was a tremendous leave off, in my opinion. Washington is a tremendously hard place to play and win. Iowa with the pink locker room. Another one that's tough. I mean, I remember when I think we were the first ones to visit Iowa and go into Hayden Fry's pink locker room. So, you know, it's a psychological advantage. Iowa fans are crazy. They're nuts. They love their football. And another tough place to bring home victories. What else? Clemson. You know, Death Valley of the East. I think that would have been something to put up there. Clemson had a tremendous home record. And again, when I'm going to and I'm looking at these numbers here, you know, Texas A&M doesn't make me think that they're the toughest place to go in and win. When you're talking about the toughest places to play, I'm thinking that what is the toughest places to go in and win? And Texas A&M, to me, they've got some losses at that stadium that they might not be too happy with. Another place that is very difficult to go in and play, Notre Dame and Touchdown Jesus. I remember when I was a freshman in 1980, the wind stopped and Harry Oliver hit a 54-yard field goal. Notre Dame is a tremendously difficult place to go in and get a win. So I think those four places could have been on that list as well. As you look at this list, you're looking at the SEC dominance. Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, four out of the top five. And then you got Florida at number 10. Five of the toughest places to go in and win. I went to Georgia and watched Kentucky. That place is electric. I want to tell you, that place was electric. You were looking at two. I believe they were both undefeated at that time when Kentucky went in and played Georgia, and Georgia soundly beat them. And I can understand why teams really have a tough time to go in Georgia and pull off victories. Alabama, their record speaks for itself. There's no question there. LSU, absolutely. I mean, that is, as old Les Miles used to say, where dreams go to die in LSU. So, the SEC is very dominant in those places. And I've been to one, and I can tell you it was pretty intimidating when I went there. I can tell you that. Next, the Big Ten with the three. You got Ohio, Penn State, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, my sophomore year, we went in as the number one team in the nation, consensus number one team in the nation, coming back off of a Rose Bowl victory, Bo's first, Anthony Carter, Butch Woolfolk, Stanley Edwards, Ed Moransky, Bubba Paris, Kurt Becker, the list goes on and on the players. We went into Wisconsin, they beat us 21-14. That place is crazy. They have chicken coop. I don't know what the chicken coop really signified or what it's supposed to prevent, because we got beer thrown on us. We got pennies thrown on us. We got everything thrown on us. And I don't know what this chicken coop was supposed to protect us from, but they had chicken coop up there. And
chicken wire to protect you guys? Is that
wire? What did I say?
Chicken coop. Like the Blues Brothers when they're throwing the beers at him in the
exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And when I look, Wisconsin, remember that's the stadium that collapsed because of all the ruckus and noise going on in the game. So Wisconsin, yeah, well deserved. I can appreciate going into Wisconsin. That's a tough place to go in and win. Penn State, I've never been there. I've never seen it, but those whiteouts look very intimidating. Now, the problem with Penn State, though, is Michigan and Ohio State have done pretty well going in there right from the beginning. I mean, Michigan went in under Gary Moeller in 92, I believe it was, 91, 92, and had a couple losses right in a row. And went in and beat one of the top-ranked teams in the country. So, Penn State and their whiteouts are tough. Ohio, I'm kind of really I understand that they're there because they win a lot of games at that stadium. But that track really moves the stands and the bleachers away from the team. Most schools, most stadiums, you're right butt upright next to the bleachers and the stands. In Ohio, you got the lanes, the track lanes, and the people are away from you. So it's that always was a little bit easier for me, in my opinion.
Jesse Owens track.
Yep.
Yeah, 93 is when Penn State joined the Big Ten. Michigan went out there, had that goal line stand and beat them. Yeah. 21-13. You mentioned the proximity, the fans at Iowa that you mentioned already. Kinnick, there's you have the bench, and behind the bench, I don't even know, you might have 5 feet, and the fans are right there. I think the fans
right there.
They could reach out and touch you if they wanted. I think
they're right there, and a lot of places are like that. I think Wisconsin was kind of like that as well, if I remember correctly.
I think you might be right. Jerry, I've been to Ohio and Penn State and Ohio Stadium and Camp Randall 2 times a piece for all of these. The press box at Camp Randall, when the fans are in there, the place is just bouncing. You go like this, and I'm not saying I was scared, but it doesn't surprise me that whatever the lever system, whatever they have. But both of the Michigan games were day games when I went to Penn State, and Ohio Stadium is pretty loud for Michigan games at 98 and 2000. I mean, those games were as loud as could be when I was there. So I don't know. If I was tasked, if you and I were tasked and they said, hey, you guys come up with the top 10 toughest places to play in the country. Well, one, I would have to decide how many years I was going to go back. I think 5 or 10 years I'd go back, and I would want the home record of the team.
Exactly, Denny.
I would take the pandemic season. I would throw it out. Not that the pandemic season didn't matter. It's the record's the record, but for toughest place to play, I would throw that out. And then I would see who's in there. And then I would go they have the decibel meters and readings for these places that they come up with. And I would see what kind of data I had there. I would combine those two, and then I would go on a reputation of people like you're saying, well, you got to have Washington in there. That place is a madhouse. And I think, Tennessee might be in there, but Michigan would be in there. And one thing I know is that from when Harbaugh, it hasn't been quite 10 years with Harbaugh, right? Like, so it was 8, 9 years?
9 years, I believe, right?
Yeah. So it was, Michigan was a really tough place to play. They lost the 2 games to Michigan State, the punt and the rain and all of that. And, they had a tough time with obviously Ohio State at the beginning, but, the last 3 years they were pretty good, at fact, perfect.
In my opinion, if you were going to talk about the toughest places to play, you better look at the records. You better look at the records, because that to me tells you that toughest place to play, the toughest place to win. That's that. When I think of the toughest place to play, I'm thinking, where's the toughest place that we needed to win? So.
All right, Jerry, let's answer some questions from the people. And Don has asked a question about a 5-star running back, Davison. I think it's not a D in there, but he is down to Michigan, Oregon, and I think Alabama. Those are the 3. I think he had Ohio State in there, but something happened down there that I don't quite get, that it didn't like or whatever. So it's not going to be Ohio State. I think Michigan is obviously they're in the running here, but I'm thinking it's going to be Oregon if I had to make my pick when it comes to Davison with that. OT says the offense doesn't need to change at all for Orji. He will just run more on the read option and will run more quarterback designed runs. What do you think?
And I think that's what I was trying to say. That's exactly what I was trying to say. That when I say we're changing the offense, let's think about what JJ did at the quarterback position last year. He was more of a thrower. He wasn't the solid run type quarterback that you're going to promote and have your whole game plan around as far as running more than throwing. And I think Orji's going to. I think he's going to be running the ball a lot next year. I think that's what he's going to do well, and it's going to help him set up the pass. If Orji can establish and we can establish a good run game, it's going to help our passing game. So, yeah, I agree with you. Who was it? OT. I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is that's the change in the playbook that I'm talking about. He's going to get more designed runs.
Yeah, I don't think Michigan, I'm not exactly sure of the calendar. It might be I don't know, we call it a dead period, but I don't think that they do have anything cooking for this weekend. Philip, we've got the Davison, that's today. Tomorrow, Julius Holly is making a decision. Michigan looks good there. Also, if you were watching this week, I think I have another one that on Monday, I have a forecast, not a future cast in, but I have a forecast in for Hardy Watts. He is announcing on Monday. And as somebody indicated that Philip Wright out of Louisiana, he's got a decision that's supposed to be forthcoming. And he was looked at as getting Georgia, but Georgia's got a bundle already of wide receivers, and they're not right. So, Michigan could be looking good for him. There's also a tight end, Olish, that is on everybody's radar as well. I know Bama is still making a hard push towards him. I don't know if he's making an announcement this weekend at all. I just see his name popping up an awful lot and people talking about him. So Davison today, Holly tomorrow, Watts on Monday, and then who were we just talking about? Right. And I don't know when exactly he's making his announcement. So those are 4 guys to think about. You could be right. You could be right, Justin. Although Brian says it is a dead period and Dave says it's just closed down for this weekend, which, I apologize. I should be right on top of that. I should know. I should have the calendar in front of me. I should know exactly, but I didn't see any visitors coming in, and Seth Berry, the Maison Review, he's always putting up the long list, and so is the publisher, Josh Henschke, and I didn't see any of that. So I was just expecting that it was not happening that way for
Denny, I think one of the things that's really underrated that people forget to look at when they're looking at recruits. I remember when I was a recruit, and I got all those press guides and those press booklets. You know what I'm talking about, Denny? They talked about the whole thing. You know what the first thing I did was? I went to the offensive line and I looked at who they had, how deep they were, how big they were, and all that good stuff. Where am I going to play in this program? And that all, that was part of my recruiting. And I think that's the same way these kids are. They're looking at, where can I go in and play? Where is my competition where I can go in and try to get on the field right away? And so they're looking at that. They're looking at a whole lot of different things about going to college. It's one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your lifetime, that and getting married and who you're marrying.
Yeah.
But these kids are looking at, where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? And so at wide receiver, that could be the place where we could pop somebody really good, because everybody else has got a ton of wide receivers, and he could be a star here.
Jerry, let's talk about Alex Orji. We talk about him a lot, but it is the top story. And everybody's talking about Justin saying he thinks that Kirk Campbell will have Alex Orji throwing motion correct for the short 5 to 10 yard passes. I'm going to take a first crack at this and what I think about Alex Orji. Do I think that he's going to be pushing the ball down the field and lighting the ball up with air yards? No, I don't. I also think that when I watched J.J. McCarthy, not this past year, but the year before, that was a question about J.J. being able to get the ball down the field and being able to connect with his wide receivers and have on the same page all the way until the Ohio State game. So the entire year. And, I was just looking at some of the charts for J.J. J.J. threw the ball 16 times against Nebraska. That's it. 21 times in the Big Ten opener last year against Rutgers. He only attempted 17 passes against Indiana, 20. So we're not talking about Orji putting the ball up 30 times. I don't even know if he's going to be putting it up 20 times. So I think he'll take some deep shots here and there. I'm not expecting against Texas Orji to be, taking the lid off of the Longhorns defense. I think he's going to be a work in progress, but I think what we know about him is that he is deadly with the ball in his hands. And Michigan does have a lot of pass catchers that you'd say diminutive that could go on crossing routes. And they've got big tight ends who can also be mismatches. We saw it in the spring game. Obviously Loveland can run and, he's a great separator and he's a great route runner, but Marlon Klein is a burner and can drag across. If that offensive line is getting some pass protection, if Michigan's running the ball, that play action, I can see that working really effectively. And so there's a world where Orji's going to be just fine. And he just takes those steps. Now they've got a lot tougher schedule, and he may be asked to do a little bit more than, JJ just throwing the ball 16 times, here and there and, blowing teams away. But I don't think he's going to be putting it up more than 20 times a game. Jerry, I think he'll average, 15 passes a game.
Well, here's the deal, Dan. I think Antoine has mentioned this several times, that Alex Orji could fit a RPO system very nicely, because there's two things you have to defend on the outside. Remember, this read option, the quarterback is reading that backside. And so what's he reading? Is he reading the defensive end, or is he reading the will linebacker out there? And I could see some real nice RPOs, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about as far as changing the playbook or tweaking the playbook a little bit. That's the kind of thing that's going to make Alex Orji really successful. Those types of things where we can read the dive, come out the other end with Orji, or throw behind it. And that can be very, very effective, very deadly against some of these teams. And if Alex Orji can come up with a solid RPO package that he feels comfortable with and is completing, I think it could be a very effective offense and a very effective quarterback.
Jerry, I'm going to call the play at the line. We've got this question for Mark, but I had a question that I told you that I was going to ask you. I can save it till next week, or we can. I'm going to let you make the decision. Do you want me to put that question to you now, or do you want to wait till next week?
Go ahead, Denny. I'm not ready, but go ahead. Let's take a shot. Why not?
All right. It's a Michigan football question of the day for Jerry Diorio, the former Wolverine. Jerry, take last year's team. I'm sorry, the champs from last year. Pictured Harbaugh is back. You have JJ. You have the whole deal here. Here's Blake Corum. How would last year's team do with the coaching staff and everything else against this year's schedule? So you just have to take last year's team. They're going to play Texas. They're going to play USC. They're going to go to Washington. They got to play Oregon. They've got to play Ohio State, and then a 12-team playoff. How do you think the champs from last year would do?
I think Texas is not as good as their last year team. I think last year's Michigan team beats them, no question. USC, we don't know much about them. They don't have their big-time quarterback. I mean, we do know a little bit about them, but they don't have Caleb Williams. So we don't know how that's going to pan out. I don't think they're going to be that much better than last year's team, if at all. And so I think last year's Michigan team beats them. Oregon, I don't know if they're going to be as good as last year's Oregon team. And remember, we beat Washington, and Washington beat Oregon twice. And so, yeah, I think Michigan's last year team beats Oregon in Ann Arbor. And I think we go down to Ohio State and beat them as well. So,
well, that's a great one, Jerry. I agree with you. But what again? Because Ohio State supposedly, like with so they got all of their guys coming back. And they have they got great recruits, like the wide receiver, the number one kid, Smith, in the country. Plus, they hit the jackpot in the transfer portal. So this is one of the, on paper, Urban Meyer said, greatest assembled team ever. I mean, it sounds like 1968 or something like that, or 95 and 96 or 97 Ohio State. But this greatest collection, and we know Michigan, this is one of the great, if not the greatest Michigan team. That collision on the road would be awesome. And then you're talking about a college football playoff with Michigan and the possibility they could run the table. All right, how about this year's team? They get East Carolina, UNLV, BG, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, MSU, Purdue, Penn State, Maryland. Do you see Alex Orji going through that schedule like a hot knife through butter last year?
I don't see any challenge until Penn State like last year's team. And I think this year's team, Penn State's going to be a much improved team this year. They've got they've done some nice things. Offensive coordinator from Kansas, defensive coordinator from Indiana, both former head coaches. So they're going to be a well-coached football team this year, and their schedule is very weak. So they could have that red letter game at Michigan and put all the emphasis on Michigan. And we might have trouble there. I think we beat them, though. I think this year's team beats last year's teams beat this year's teams beat last year's last year's Penn State. You got me talking to myself, running around in circles here, Denny.
Well, I know what you mean. It gets confused when you're talking about last year playing this year and this year playing last year, and everyone's like, "Wait, what are these guys talking about?" It. I think last year's team, like they had Sharon Moore as the head coach. They ran the ball. They didn't even need JJ in that game against Penn State. I think Michigan wins that one. JJ had a fabulous throw against Ohio State. That would be the one. I mean, you've got a lot of games under your belt if you're Alex Orji in this theoretical matchup of taking this year's team and having them play last year's schedule. I don't know, but Michigan's at home. Could they squeak out the defense? I mean, Rod Moore and Will Johnson did come up with those picks. It was the defense that actually had the day. They were 3 for 3 on third downs, and they played for Zach Zinter at the end. I kind of feel like Michigan would win that. The one that I would wonder about is the Rose Bowl, and they had the last drive where they made the 4th and 2, and then JJ ran the ball, and then he threw it to Roman Wilson twice. I don't know about that drive with Orji, so that's the one that I'm not sure about.
But does Alex Orji have better drives in the game before that? And And I think Alabama had a real hard time stopping our run, and I think they would have had a hard time stopping the run with Orji, even more so, because now you got more people that are going to threaten you. Remember what we talked about before that Alabama game? We talked about that Alabama was suspect on the run game, and I think Michigan did a great job last year in the Rose Bowl against Alabama. I think our run game was very solid in that game.
I love it. I don't know if it's just fun to think about. I was going to say we didn't come back.
Absolutely. I love it.
Fun to think about. Well, Jerry, thanks for staying so long. I know I kept you longer than I thought. I told you I was going to be. What do you got here?
I got my new picture up here, Denny. Hell yes. Hail to the victors. Detroit News, 2023 national champions. There's Harbs, Quorum, JJ, Barrett. What a great team that was.
Pretty good. Now, if I keep you up close here, I'd like to keep myself in the background, but yeah, that's looking pretty good. I like that. So that's new. You adjusted the wall behind you.
That's my Father's Day gift from my kids. So, yep.
I tell you what, kids came up with they really rang the bell there. Great job. Great job. Jerry, great job to you, and we'll talk with you next week. All the best.
Hail to the victors, Denny. Thank you again, Denny. It's always a pleasure working with you.
There he is, Jerry Diorio. Smash that like button, and we'll talk.